Hello. This happened a long time ago. I was young and had just come back from traveling in Europe. I wound up renting an apartment that I was not happy with, but it was in my hometown, and was affordable. I was hoping to move out, and was able to do so once a better opportunity came along. The apartment was generally depressing, so I was looking forward to moving out. I talked to the landlord and building manager about moving out, and to see if I could move out mid-month to save on some rent. They said that was not possible, and I would have to wait until the end of the month to move out. Fine, not a big problem. The building manager says I need to fill out some forms before I can move out, so I go to his office and do so. He was not a very friendly guy, but honestly I had not had any interactions with him prior to this, and had no hard feelings about him. One of the questions on the form was, "Why are you moving out?" I left it blank. What business is it of anyone's why I'm moving out? The building manager handed me back the form and said, "You have to fill this in." I told him that I didn't feel like giving a reason that I am moving out, and didn't understand why it was mandatory. He insisted that I had to fill it in or he would not process my move-out paperwork to end the month-to-month lease. I said okay fine, and filled in. I do not like the building manager. He was shocked when he read it. I told him I didn't want to put anything down, but rules are rules. An off-roader discovered a torso protruding from a shallow grave in the desert on the east edge of Las Vegas on March 25, 1996. When police arrived, they discovered the bodies of 3 women in a shallow grave covered by about a foot of dirt. The burial site was in the desert about 200 yards from a waste treatment center bordering the Las Vegas Wash, not far from the intersection of Hollywood and Vegas Valley. The women had each been wrapped in a 30-gallon green garbage bag and bound with packing tape. Children's clothes were found inside the bags with some of the victims, and a suitcase containing bloody clothing was found near the grave. 2 of the women were nude and the third was wearing only panties. All 3 women were Asian with shoulder-length dark hair, though one of the women had a few strands of gray hair, and all were described by police as very slender. The coroner determined one woman was in her late 30s to 50s, and that the other 2 women were about 25 years old. The older woman had dentures. One victim had died of blunt force trauma to the head and suffocation, while the other 2 died of strangulation. Police ran the victims' fingerprints through national databases, but no records were located. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police detectives worked with the LAPD Asian Gangs Unit and Missing Persons Unit to develop the theory that the women likely were murdered as part of an organized crime-linked human trafficking ring. The lead detective on the case speculated the women balked at working as prostitutes at Las Vegas massage parlors and were murdered by their captors as a result. It's also worth noting that the bodies of several women, many believed to be prostitutes, were found in a 4 square miles area of the desert between the east side of Las Vegas and Lake Mead from mid-1994 to early 1997. One of these young women, Margaret Hicks, was found less than a mile from the grave where the 3 Jane Does were found. Here's the story we found written by a former Las Vegas Sun reporter that sparked our interest in this case. And here's our write-up of this case. According to the LA Times, Joseph James DeAngelo Jr., 74, is set to enter a guilty plea to 13 murders and kidnapping charges from as many rapes in a yet-to-be-determined Sacramento County courtroom on June 29. The crimes occurred during the 1970s and 80s. The former police officer accused of terrorizing California during a series of rapes and killings nearly a half-century ago attributed to the Golden State Killer is expected to plead guilty this month in a deal that will spare him the death penalty, according to multiple sources. /source/why / from Wikipedia : The Golden State Killer is a serial killer, serial rapist, and burglar who committed at least 13 murders, more than 50 rapes, and over 100 burglaries in California from 1974 to 1986. He is believed to be responsible for at least 3 crime sprees throughout California, each of which spawned a different nickname in the press, before it became evident that they were committed by the same person. In the Sacramento area he was known as the East Area Rapist, and was linked by modus operandi to additional attacks in Contra Costa County, Stockton, and Modesto. He was later known for his Southern California crimes as the original Night Stalker. He is suspected to have begun as a burglar, the Visalia ransacker, before moving to the Sacramento area, based on a similar modus operandi and circumstantial evidence. He taunted and threatened his victims and police in obscene phone calls and other communications. And #X200B. During the decades-long investigation, several suspects have been cleared through DNA evidence, alibi, or other investigative methods. In 2001, DNA testing indicated that the East Area rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same person. The case was a factor in the establishment of California's DNA database, which collects DNA from all accused and convicted felons in California and has been called second only to Virginia's ineffectiveness in solving cold cases. To heighten awareness that the uncaught killer operated throughout California, crime writer Michelle McNamara coined the name Golden State Killer in early 2013. And #X200B. The Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, and local law enforcement agencies held a news conference on June 15, 2016, to announce a renewed nationwide effort, offering a $50,000 reward for his capture. On April 24, 2018, authorities charged 72-year-old United States Navy veteran and former police officer Joseph James DeAngelo with 8 counts of first-degree murder, based upon DNA evidence. This was also the first announcement connecting the Visalia ransacker crimes to the Golden State Killer. Owing to California's statute of limitations on pre-2017 rape cases, DeAngelo cannot be charged with 1970s rapes, /20 but he was charged in August 2018 with 13 related kidnapping and abduction attempts. This happened yesterday. With all the schools being closed, we've been trying to keep learning on the agenda, and yesterday's activity was counting and looking at numbers. I was helping her with counting, and she can count to 29, then asks what comes next, and then she'll do the whole 31, 32, 33 up to 39, then ask what comes after 39. She does this for every next tens number. She's getting better at remembering what the next one is though. So me being the smart ass I am, she counted to 69, asked what comes after 69. I laughed, looked at her dad who was half paying attention, and said mouthwash. Proud of my stupid joke, then didn't think much of it afterwards and continued counting. Today her grandparents came to see her and she was showing them her counting, and of course she remembered what I said, so off she goes 67, 68, 69, and mouthwash comes after 69. Mouthwash 1, mouthwash 2. The look her grandparents gave me, I almost died. I honestly didn't think she'd paid much attention, but obviously I was wrong. So now we're practicing counting again, hoping she doesn't say it when she starts school. DL. Doctor counting with child said mouthwash comes after 69. She keeps repeating this and will be going to school soon, spending the day counting and hoping she'll forget. Now comes a story of revenge that may make someone's day. So to start off, I used to work at a big warehouse store chain. Let's call it CJ's. I worked there for nearly 5 years, finally got fed up and had to leave. I now work at an amazing factory job and I love it. Been there a little over 8 months. Which makes this story even more fascinating in a way. Yesterday, I was at CJ's, getting groceries and talking to a couple of my old friends that still work there. I'm wearing my factory uniform, clearly not wearing the red and blue that the workers at CJ's wear. My factory uniform is black. In walks an older woman that we all know of. Let's call her Karen. She was what you might call a problem customer. Nothing was ever what she liked. All the employees were idiots, etc., but she had a real hatred for the male employees. Why? Who knows? But she treated me and the other male stock clerks horribly. Karen spots me talking to my friends, and Karen never liked me. Even though I had on a mask and again, was wearing my factory uniform, she comes right on over. Tells us all we're lazy workers and that we don't get paid to stand around and talk. She then orders me to help her lift some cat litter into her cart. Me, no. I don't work here anymore. Get someone else to do it. Karen, excuse me? You do too work here, you've helped me in the past. Now help me get some cat litter. Me, I haven't worked here in 8 months, I'm not doing anything. One of these guys will help you. Indeed, the 2 guys I was talking to were literally standing right there. But that didn't please Karen. Karen, are you refusing to help a paying customer? I'll get you fired. At that point, I was rather fed up. I just smiled at her and said okay, go ahead. Get me fired from here, you idiot. That went as well as you'd expect, and she immediately went to the service desk. Minutes later, Karen came back with one of the managers. And who was the manager she got? The one I got along extremely well with when I worked there. As soon as they reached me, I hear her say that's the one. Fire him for insulting me and not helping me. He just walked over and asked me how my new job was going. Karen's look equals priceless. DL, Doctor, Karen yells at me for not helping her at a place I haven't worked at in months and ends up looking like a jackass. My first grocery store job got me some interesting people. I was just thinking about an older couple that came in, and as I was ringing up their items, they were mesmerized. They finally saw my expression and said, "We're just amazed that you've memorized all the prices in the store and gotten them right." I smiled and told them, "Actually, I don't memorize the prices on the items in store." Explained to them about the barcode and that was that. I was a little surprised that they didn't know that, but went on my merry way. That wasn't the first time someone said that. Not long after that, someone called the store and said that the cashier rang up her milk wrong. If she said something while it was being rung up, she could have fixed it as it was only 20 cents difference. She told me, "I will let it go this time, but this absolutely unacceptable and the cashier needs to be retrained." I told her that it wasn't the cashier's fault. I explained about the barcode and how it worked. She said, "I don't believe that for a second. You ring things up higher than it's supposed to be because you're out to get my money. That extra 20 cents made all the difference. It wasn't worth it anymore after that." I said, "Okay, ma'am. I will absolutely mention this to my manager. He won't be happy." And she said, "I'm glad you see my perspective on this. Goodbye." I shared a good laugh with my coworkers that day. I, 18F, was 16 when this happened. I worked at a pool over the summer as the front desk and was used to weird old guys trying to make conversation with me and such. I had one manager, we will call him Ray, that was so incredibly inappropriate and weird to all the girls who worked there. One example of him being weird is asking my Muslim co-worker, who is required to wear full coverage bathing suits that are almost like scuba suits, if she wears bikinis. She politely says no, and he continues to ask if she'd ever wear one around the pool when they weren't there. Weird. Well, my story has to do with me closing the pool. It was me working the desk alone that night. Usually I'm accompanied by someone else, so that means I'd have to close by myself. There's a large metal door you have to pull up and down using a chain, which is on the inside of the desk area, meaning you can only open/close it from the inside. You can access the desk area through the locker rooms, so you close the gate, shut off the lights and walk to the locker room exit to get to the main office outside. Ray was hovering over me the entire time I was trying to close. I said, "Okay, you can get out now so you won't have to get locked in here and walk through the locker room." He insisted he stay with me to walk through. This made me super uneasy and I did not feel comfortable walking through alone with him in the pitch black, basically soundproof locker rooms when no one else was there. So I closed the gate, and he did his final check to make sure no one was in the men's room. He called out we were all good and I immediately turned all the lights off, turned my phone light on and kept a friend on speed dial and sprinted through the women's room towards the exit. It was seriously so scary to know he was locked in there with me, following me. Maybe I overreacted, but he was known by the entire staff as the creep. It sucks feeling unsafe at work. So Ray, let's not meet again. How not to commit insurance fraud number 4. A shorter one today, I hope. A little bit of background that a lot of insurance companies offer cover if your pet goes and you incur expenses recovering them. This can be any reasonable expense, adverts, dog warden fees, even the fire department as your pet is trapped somewhere. Most people get some flyers printed to put up or delivered to houses in your area. Me, I am afraid we can't cover the cost of printing leaflets. Color, why not? Me, well the receipt is handwritten. Color, lots of people do handwritten invoices. Me, yes, but printers normally print them. Color, well, I will get another receipt from them. 2 weeks later. Me, I am sorry but the new receipt isn't sufficient for us to be able to pay your claim. Color, why not? Me, well this one is printed, but it is a word processed document on standard printer paper. Color, so? Me, documents produced by professional printers are normally of a very high standard and this isn't. The address is incomplete, there isn't a VAT, sales tax, number, and it looks like it was put together on a home computer. Color, it's not my fault the business keeps giving me bad receipts. Me, that is why I called the business up. Despite phoning at different times of the day they don't answer the phone during business hours. The address given doesn't match anything registered with Royal Mail, Post Office. There isn't any business in your town with a similar name, so I am afraid I can settle this claim. Caller, well if that is your attitude I am withdrawing my claim and canceling the policy. Me, I'll transfer you through straight away. Caller, aren't you going to try to change my mind? Me, no. Enjoy the rest of your day. My downstairs neighbors have been trouble since the day they moved in. Everybody was happy in our little apartment block, treating each other well. Then they moved in, and suddenly the main door lock got stuck, doormats disappeared, my fake flowers at my front door disappeared, And they smoke in the communal area. They complain about me all the time. They hear my radio, even though the volume is lower than speaking level. They complain about me slamming the doors. My doors in the house are always open, and I'm not aware of slamming my front door. They complain about me walking around in noisy shoes all day. When I'm home, I'm bare feet. So to teach me a lesson, they shut off my main water. It's in a closet in the communal area, with the mains for the other apartments as well. They deny it, of course. They don't have a doormat, they have a carpet tile. They had a used one with paint and coffee stains on it, but that one disappeared magically, lol. Now they have a new one. Why they don't spend $3 on a normal mat, I don't know. So a few nights ago, I invited my cat to pee where I could collect it, and I dripped some on their shiny new carpet tile doormat. I plan to do this a few times more, so that every time they open their door, they smell cat pee. I smell their cigarette smoke every time I open my door, so it seemed fitting. But petty. In more ways than one. This was in the before time of Corona. I had just transferred to my new store. Guy comes through drive wanting Sudafed. Tell him he has to come in. He flips, yelling that he is his elderly mom in the car. He pulls off and a minute later whoever was on lunch came back and took drive. That's how our rotation goes. I go up front. A few more minutes go by and in he comes. Grab the Sudafed, ask for his driver's license. He doesn't have it. Like you drove here, WTF, he does have his mother's license and says it's for her. I tell him I can't legally sell it to him unless she comes in and signs for it. He blows up. Really? You're gonna make my 85-year-old mother walk in here? I'm sorry, but the law is the law. He stomps out and returns a few minutes later with his mom. I was helping someone so another tech grabbed him. He screams at me as he is leaving, "Karma's gonna get you someday." Okay dude. I was petty today and I couldn't wait to come home to tell all of you about this. Despite social distancing today, I had to go to the store. Like most places, there were pieces of tape on the ground 6 feet apart telling us where to stand. It was sunny and hot standing there in line. The line was long and moving rather slowly. Out of the blue, a woman comes and cuts the line right behind me. Rude. For some reason, the woman who was originally behind me didn't say anything to the line cutter woman. But now I am disturbed because now this woman is standing 3 feet behind me instead of 6 feet and I'm feeling uncomfortable at the lack of distancing, not to mention her rudeness at line cutting. I decided not to say anything because I didn't want to cause a ruckus. Slowly but surely, the line moves forward. Up ahead, close to the front of the line there are 2 very wide pillars forming somewhat of a portico. Because the pillars are so wide, they cast a shadow and the shade is a beautiful relief from the sun. Beyond these 2 pillars are 4 more pieces of tape on the ground leading to the front of the store. When I get to the shade of the second pillar, enjoying the relief from the heat, I decided that when the 4 people ahead of me get called, I am not going to move forward onto any of those pieces of tape. I am going to leave 24 feet between me and the front of the store until I am permitted to enter the store so that the rude person behind me has to stand in the heat of the sun. Had I moved forward, she would have had the opportunity to stand in the shade, but I am petty. I used to have a decent relationship with my mother-in-law. She's barely 5 feet tall and close to 200 pounds. For as long as I've known her she's always been dieting. She did the Slim Fast diet where she just drank those low-calorie shakes, and then she did Weight Watchers but never stuck with it. Needless to say she never lost much and what little she did lose was gained back. I used to be obese myself last year, but through calorie counting I managed to lose over 40 pounds putting me at a healthy weight for the first time since I was a young child. My mother-in-law became very bitter towards me because I had the secret to weight loss and I was keeping it from her. I explained over and over again it doesn't matter what you eat, just stay at a deficit. I even helped her download a calorie tracking app. Last week she was telling me she's tried everything. She's tried eating almonds, salad, pretzels and even yogurt but nothing works. She is convinced she is eating the wrong kind of yogurt and that's what keeping her from losing weight. She repeatedly asks me what kind of yogurt I eat, which I reply with whatever is on sale and low calorie. She's not happy with that answer and becomes irritated with me because it has to be the yogurt. It's not the large ice cream cone she ordered or all the fast food, it's the darn yogurt. I originally tried to post this in r/petty revenge but it wouldn't take it. So I'm posting it here. Back in the day my sister used to treat me like her personal servant. She even stated I was her servant once. And I would fight her about it. But she'd relapse here and there and act like I was subservient to her. But one day I got some petty revenge when she made me make her lunch. At the time we lived in a house that had a second living room in the basement. So me and my sister spent a lot of time in there watching TV and playing N64. While there she suddenly ordered me to go make her lunch. Which for us at the time was basically microwave hot dogs. And she'd only ever eat one at a time. So I went into the kitchen and started getting ready to microwave her hot dog. But then I got an idea. I took the hot dog and cut various lines, designs and shapes into it. Anyone who does this knows that the hot dog will gnarl and twist and contort like crazy while it cooks. I set the microwave to 1 minute and returned to the basement. She looked at me and said, "Where's my lunch?" I just dismissed her and said, "Get it yourself." She glared at me and then walked up the stairs. A few seconds later she yelled, "Foxtrot 86, you mutilated my hot dog." I nearly fell over laughing. And my sister still ate the hot dog. But she gave me side glares while she did. She also never tried to order me to cook her lunch again. And shortly after she went to live with relatives for a while. This wasn't today, but a few years back, and I only just remembered it and cringed hard. I was on the way to visit family for a wedding and just got off a long train journey. Half asleep, I was walking down the stairs of the bridge thingy that goes over the train tracks. The heck is that called? I'm pulling a blank, with my huge bag, and saw someone running full speed towards me. This train station was in a not-so-great nearby town to my parents' place, so I immediately realized that this was a mugger. I am a rotund lover, not a fighter, so survival instincts kicked in. Fight or flight triggered. I decided that I did not drag this heavy bag all this way to have it stolen now. So right as this would-be mugger got to me, I reeled back, and full-on punched the guy with the voracity of an anime character, throwing all my weight into it. I managed to knock the unsuspecting robber to the ground and got out of there as quick as I could and found my mom, who was coming to pick me up, in the car park. Instead of a happy greeting, she was mortified. Turns out, that wasn't a mugger. It was a cousin. He'd moved to Canada a decade ago, and in my tired state, I didn't recognize him anymore. We were great friends before he moved away, so he was running up to me to excitedly greet me, and I had just knocked him out. We laughed at it later, but now it's a story whenever we look at the wedding photos. Doctor, heroically stopped myself being mugged, ruined family photos in the process. I told my supervisor that I had taken 5 days or 1 week because I have the leave and we can use annual leave as we please long as we have it and give reasons. Well, I gave her my reason. I've been there a long time, so if I'm not in the postal plant they know something is up, lol, basically. Well, I told her that I have been hiding real bad depression after my father died and I find no motivation some days to even get out of the bed. She took what I said and somehow formulated it into "please don't hurt yourself or anybody else." I was upset, but I went with it, kept listening. She continued to say she doesn't know if it's safe for me to be at work and actually asked me to go home and come in today with a referral or proof of appointment with a doctor. I listened because it's my nature. I don't fight my supervisors. Except for the fact that I am absolutely not bringing in paperwork for appointments I can't afford or don't want to, and I'm coming in today with no paperwork, but I flipped up by thinking I'm being honest and open and it backfired. Wish me luck, guys. Work in 4.5 hours. Hopefully she doesn't try to make me feel worse. Doctor, watch what you say because your intentions may not matter when you tell someone something about you. Quick flashback to Saturday. I'm making a cash pickup from the tills and there's a check in the till drawn on a bank that closed 15 years ago after being bought out by another bank. I showed it to the cashiers and told them about it. Our store director went to high school with the person the checks belonged to and confirmed they were stolen. Back to Monday. There's a customer with a couple of large buggies. She pulls out one of the exact same set of checks and starts writing it out for $380. One of the cashiers I had shown the check to comes running to the office with the check. "Ma'am, I can't take this check." "Why not?" "Well, to start with, Superior Federal has been closed since 2005, this check isn't any good." "It's my daughter's check, there's a Superior Federal still in El Dorado." "No, ma'am, the Superior Bank in El Dorado wasn't a part of this chain when it was open, and it's actually a credit union. This check clearly says Federal Bank in Malvern. Also, it's not your daughter's check, this check is stolen. I know the person these belong to. I had an account with Superior Federal when it was open, they were a really good bank, so I know a bit more than a normal person would." "Well, I never." "It doesn't matter, I cannot and I will not take this check for this purchase." At this point the lady storms out, and she and the woman with her head for different vehicles. I can't quite get a tag number on them, but I get a good description and call the police department. Upon reviewing the cameras, we discover that the lady had an ankle monitor on. 15 minutes later, they come back, pull into the parking lot of the law office next door and go in. I run out, get a tag number and call the police, who show up and make an arrest. This story is brutal, though thankfully, swift. I was at a community pool with my wife and 3 years old daughter. In keeping with social distancing measures, I swam with my daughter to keep her from glomming onto other children. My wife was on the sidelines with our infant son, and I would occasionally look over to see how everyone was doing. It was during one of these quick glances that my daughter, in all her water-winged glory, made a beeline for the side of the pool where an underwater bench allowed people to sit along the wall. It was there, on the bench, that an overweight woman and her daughter, who appeared to be the same age as mine, were sitting and playing. It was obvious that my kid wanted to play with a peer and I felt bad having to shut her down. But, taking my duties as a pandemic-conscious parent seriously, I swam over to guide her back to open waters. When I came within 6 of them, I said, to my daughter, "Hey, big girl." To my chagrin, the overweight woman looked up and said yes. Panic gripped my heart and time stopped. Thankfully, I hadn't made eye contact with her and quickly made additional comments to my daughter. Then, I looked to the woman and her child, and doing my best to appear unaware of her inadvertent response, said something offhand like, "Sorry about that." I could see in the woman's eyes a shame and humiliation that was god-darn heartbreaking. To overcome the moment, I tried to make small talk, but I could tell I wasn't successful. They left the pool shortly after my daughter and I swam away. I'm still cringing and feel awful. I hope she's okay. DL, Doctor, I called a woman fat. This isn't exactly a big FU, but just thought I should share it with you guys. This occurred a couple years ago. I was about 16 to 17 at the time, I'm almost 20 now, and I had gone out to buy a couple of groceries after being berated by my mom for sitting at home gaming all day. In contrast to the current scenario, the shops were filled with people going about their lives buying all sorts of groceries. Anywho, without paying any heed to the surroundings, I just grab everything I needed, and head straight to the counter to pay the bill and just go back home. I started waiting in line to the counter. That's when I find this really cute cashier, about 18 or so, in a couple counters adjacent to me. Let's call her A. I quickly leave the queue behind and join the counter where A was situated. The line was longer than the previous, but a small price to pay, I assume. About 10 minutes into the line, my turn comes up. Now I haven't always been a ladies' man, I only had one ex, and wasn't exactly the smooth talker. I just stand there awkwardly smiling while she scans my groceries. Now this is where the FU happens. I pay the bill, and she mutters something that goes like $1. Thinking it was the balance, I said keep the change, smiled, took off. She profusely kept yelling at me, gesturing me to come. She goes, "No sir, you have to pay $1 more," and goes ahead to show me the bill. At this point, the person next in line witnessed everything and bursts laughing. My cheeks turned red. I quickly muffled through my pockets for $1, paid and never talked about it since. DL, Dr. FU by asking the cute cashier to keep the change while actually I needed to pay more. M, 25, inside a shady shoe store in Las Vegas, taking my time going down the men's aisle judging the knockoff shoes and seeing what I might get. Wide Karen approaches, "Do you work here?" "No." Smacks lips, "What, I need a shoe size," and walks away annoyed as I don't bother to look at her. Returning to her group, she tells them how I'm watching/following shoppers. Inaudible minutes later. "I need help," turns to glance at me. I'm focused on looking at shoes with corner of my eye, seeing it registers in her head that I do not indeed work here. Less than split second later she turns to look for employees. I work at a small-town coffee shop that has managed to adapt and stay busy during COVID-19 by utilizing a window for walk-up service. A regular problematic customer, let's call him TJ, is a typical middle-aged man riddled with toxic masculinity. He often makes female employees and customers uncomfortable with his comments. Lately he's been around a lot, being typical DJ. Today he came to our window and ordered a coffee. Cool, nothing out of the ordinary. A co-worker asked him if he would like to tip via our Square register. We normally don't verbally ask customers, but with the current pandemic we are not allowing customers to touch our iPad system. He proceeded to tell her to put 100, and reassured them he wanted to tip that much because he appreciates our hard work and effort and wants to chip in since our business has been a bit slower. Okay, I gave him that and almost have a change of heart about DJ. We both outwardly thank him and he goes on his way. I text my boss about this uncharacteristic interaction with TJ, and through their end of the register system she was able to look at the transaction. They noticed that not only was the credit card he used not in his name, but in his boss's name, on their company card. Typical TJ. What a D-bag. I've been eating out at different establishments for a while. From fast food restaurants, which I love, and at fine dining restaurants that charge $500 to $1,000 per plate. However, I just had the best server of my life today, at a well-known, country-style restaurant that serves old-fashioned food. The server was a guy who's late teens/early 20s. A very tall fellow. First impression? The aura he gave off was extremely pleasant. Yes sir. No sir. Not only was he courteous, it was like he was happy to be there. The reason why he was the best server though? I did not have to ask for anything. He kept coming back to the table every 5 minutes to refill my drinks without asking me. Ask how everything is, and if I needed anything else. In my honest opinion, that is literally all it takes to be an amazing server. I regularly tip between $20 to $100 per meal, regardless of meal amount, and he definitely changed the way that I view servers now. I was completely blown away by his service. That is the new baseline right there. Like many tifus, this didn't happen today, but 3 years ago. I was seeing a woman I thought was my dream girl. Spoiler alert, she was not, and I wanted to go see an old best friend of mine who happened to be a woman. My girlfriend told me she didn't feel comfortable with me going to see my friend, that she didn't want me to go. So I told my friend I'd see her another time, making up some dumb excuse I can't remember. While we were in Europe visiting some of my girlfriend's family, which was a lot of fun for most of the trip, being my second trip to Europe, I'm from the US, my old friend passed away at her own hands. I didn't know until I had 1 week left of the trip, which made me miss the funeral. I ended up meeting later with her mother, to try to gain some closure. It helped a lot, but I regret not going to see her the time I had the chance. It still hurts a lot. Another fun thing, my ex and I ended up breaking up because she had no emotional reaction to my friend dying, and she didn't care at all that I was devastated. TLDR, my ex-girlfriend a few years ago didn't want me to visit an old female friend. I didn't go. She died a few months later by suicide. Living with the regret is an idiot. First time posting, currently a EMS dispatcher for a private ambulance company for 3 years now. We take some calls, however, they're usually seizures, psych, and falls. This one? Probably should have been psych, but unfortunately she wasn't the patient. This call happened in my first year, while I was pretty fresh and didn't understand the power of controlling a call. And #X200B. Me, okay, tell me exactly what happened. CLR, yeah, my mom fell in the other room, you know we have her locked in there right now, but yeah she fell and I think she may have hit her head. Me, okay, are you with her now? CLR, well, you see, she has dementia, and we live in a new home, so she is locked in there. You see, we can't have her wandering because of the bears that are around here. Me, have you gone to check on her yet? CLR, no, I can't unlock her door because she will get out and the bears will get her. Me, can you please go check on the patient? CLR, yeah, I think she might have hit her head, it sounded like she hit the end table, that's what woke me up, but even our big dog, insert large dog brand, is afraid to go outside because there are bears here at this new house. Please send the ambulance but make sure they get in and out quick because the bears will get them. Rinse and repeat for literally every one of the 10 questions involved with a fall. I was essentially working with a third-party caller as she flat out refused to unlock her mother from the room until the EMTs got there, let alone even go look at her. And #X200B. I kid you not, I heard way more about these bears than I ever got out of her regarding her fallen mother. While I may have wanted to bash my head into the desk repeatedly asking her the questions, now I can have a good belly laugh over it. From what I do remember though, Mom was transported alright, and no EMTs were mauled by the darn bears. Well, this was a new one. I had a family of 10 check in, driving in the longest van that I've ever seen. They get 2 connecting rooms, and seem to be well behaved, so I think I'm going to have a decent night. Until they discover the pool, and they were every bit as loud as you'd imagine. Something to know about our pool is it's one of those outdoor/indoor pools, with an opening between the two, so you can swim between them. The best part was when the father came up when they were done, and asked the question in the title. When I told him I didn't understand exactly what he was asking, He asked about keeping people out of it when it was closed. Oh, well, I go out there and ask everyone to leave. Apparently, that wasn't what his question meant. He wanted to know if someone got into the outdoor pool and swam into the indoor pool, what would keep them from coming inside? Last night was a lovely night, so I went outside to look at the sky. At some point I dozed off and woke up when I felt a weird pain on my upper lip. I didn't think anything of it because I have fibromyalgia, so I'm always feeling strange, sudden pain and sensations. I took my tired ass to bed and fell asleep almost immediately. The yard work I did during the day took a toll on me. This morning I woke up with swollen, itchy lips. I immediately showed my mother and she said it looks like a mosquito bit me on my lips. I took a Benadryl just in case and have been applying a cold compress every few minutes. I am prone to facial staph infections, so I am putting some special ointment on my lips and around them as a precaution. This shoot is so goddamn annoying. The worst part is that I can't drink coffee because heat makes my lips feel super weird. DL, doctor, I fell asleep outside and a mosquito bit my lip and I woke up with an Angelina Jolie look that doesn't suit me at all. Our state just finished our phase 4 of complete reopen. Throughout all of this, our boss has been of the "it's just the flu" mindset and thinks we're overreacting. So about a week and a half ago, a fair-sized group of people went out bar hopping in our downtown area and at least 10 people from that group tested positive. This situation was discussed at our weekly meeting yesterday, Monday. One of our coworkers, Jay, that was in the meeting was apparently out with that group, and he neglected to tell us. So today, he doesn't show up for work and one of our other coworkers tells us that Jay is out for the day getting tested. Then comes the second bombshell, our boss wants him to come to work after he gets his test, even if he doesn't get a result today, unlikely he will. Luckily, Jay's doctor is intelligent and told him he absolutely would not go to work until he's been cleared by the doctor. The other 4 of us are livid. Not only is our boss willing to put us at risk, but also our families and our customers as well. We were all making plans to take the rest of the day off, and more if necessary, if Jay did come to work. I can't understand why our boss is such an ass. Let me preface this by saying that I hate junk mail, and this story is set about 10 years ago in Australia. I moved into a new area, half an hour away from my old residence. It put me into a new electorate, one which was won by a party similar to the GOP. When I updated my address, I started getting self-congratulatory junk mail from my new local member, which I tried to stop. They didn't heed my request to take me off their mailing list, even after asking 3 or 4 times. I see their mail-outs as a huge waste of tax funds, so I wanted them stopped. One day I received another letter from her, but this time I noticed that it contained a reply-paid envelope. Cue petty revenge. I gathered up all my junk mail, and stuffed it into the envelope, along with a letter that I typed out, saying "Congratulations, you've been added to my mailing list." I did it a few more times, and then I stopped receiving junk mail from her. It may have only cost her a few, but it felt good. Bartender at a local pizza joint. My buddy came in after a long day dealing with his 2 sick little girls. He tells me a story from today about the littlest. She's screaming for him from the bathroom. She states she's been waiting for 60 years for him. All she wanted was a cheese pizza from our place. Since they were sick, he went with something more appropriate for upset stomachs. But you can guarantee I got him a gift certificate for a cheese pizza for her when she's better. Nice to have good customers to even out the bad ones, lol. This isn't really generic tech support, but I remember this interaction today and I thought I'd share. So, technically I work in retail, but we do a lot of over-the-phone and in-person tech support for folks. It isn't 100% formal, but people in my position at this place know about common issues with custom computer builds and networking problems and other issues. A few months back I get a call from a customer who is having problems, and he says his new build isn't posting. I start having some email correspondence with him, which takes forever as he takes anywhere from 5 to 10 hours to respond to my emails, and he didn't have time for a long phone call. I go through the general issues with him, like PSU cables being plugged in, and I also guide him through a CMOS jump to see if it's maybe that he didn't plug in his FPO correctly or something. Still nothing. I ask him what parts he has and he sends me a list. I finally realized. I probably should have asked him what parts he had first. Rookie mistake on my part. He was trying to use an AMD chip with an H370 board. Not sure how he thought the two were compatible. Nor how he actually got the chip into the board at all. I asked him about the pins on his processor. He says they're pushed flat now. Shouldn't they be that way? I facepalm internally and have to go about explaining to him that his processor and motherboard aren't compatible in the slightest. As things go, the guy blows up on me, saying he didn't have any way of knowing. This is true. He didn't buy the parts at my workplace, so he didn't really have anyone guiding him through it. I suppose he didn't really do much research either, which is crazy to me because one Google search would show anyone it's an Intel board. I also deduced from what he'd said that he had his EPS cable plugged into his GPU. Hopefully it's still okay. I never found out. I arranged for him to pick up new parts and he begrudgingly agrees with me that our certified techs should build it. Really, they should have taken this issue, but they're a wee bit understaffed ATM. Oh, the tragedy. After this I never heard anything else from the guy, but darn, I hope he got a working computer. I see a lot of missteps with custom builds, but most are minor, like subpar cable management or RAM in the wrong slots, but this was by far the worst. Not really your generic tech support story, but I hope you all get a kick out of it. I'm sure a lot of you have had similar interactions. I worked in housekeeping in a hotel for months up until this past week. I'm now 35 weeks pregnant. I was scheduled to work 5+ days a week, with 20+ rooms to myself. I came into work recently, because I was on the schedule, and I could barely walk. I couldn't bend my back and my ankles were hugely swollen. I had been in L&D the night before to stop contractions. We didn't have many rooms, but 5 housekeepers in-house. Everyone was almost begging my manager to send me home, as we had too many housekeepers for the amount of rooms. Now, I'm huge at this point in pregnancy. I can't bend too far forward in general. My manager and I, discussed a couple weeks ago that she didn't want me cleaning bathtubs, so I was to have another housekeeper come clean my bathtubs. No biggie, I was fine with that. Well, the day before I quit I had went to find another HK to help with a bathtub. Said manager stopped us in the hall and asked what we were doing socializing on the clock. We explained that she was going to clean a bathtub for me and would go right back to her rooms. She yelled at me and said that if I can't do my job, I need to quit so that she can hire someone who's willing to work. I explained that it wasn't that I wasn't willing to work, rather that's one small task that I myself struggle with accomplishing. She didn't care. She continued yelling at me. Now, I've always hated being yelled at, so I spent the rest of my shift crying while cleaning my rooms. I got home from work, still crying. My boyfriend became extremely upset as I told him what had happened. We decided that it's in the best interest of our child that I just be done, as it's a lot of emotional trouble as well as physical. So I gave my manager her wish, and I went in and handed in my scrubs and quit. She seemed sympathetic, said she understood, was sad to see me go, and for me to come talk to her after I was released from maternity leave. Fast forward to today, another HK at said hotel was talking to this manager, while recording the conversation to send to me. She asked if I would be back after baby. The manager told her that I was lazy and a crybaby, so she would never consider hiring me back. I'm glad I quit. I feel like I dodged a bullet. I'm not sure that I'll ever be able to convince myself to work in housekeeping again. So I work at a small office for a construction company. I have one coworker that is a grandma, and due to some parental issues, she is now taking care of her 2 youngest granddaughters, ages 7 and 8. She doesn't really have money, so she can't pay for a babysitter to watch the girls as she's working her 8 to 5 job. There is also the issue of COVID-19 right now, so having a stranger come into your house for long periods of time and be around kids is not really a good idea. Luckily, for her, the boss is okay with the girls being in the office as long as they don't bother anyone from working and be quiet. Over the time, I've slowly went from being grandma's co-worker to being a babysitter. This is how it starts. The girls did that at first, until one of their tablets broke down and stopped working. Then, they would fight over the other tablet and would whine and tattle to the closest adult there, usually me. So to stop this, I brought my tablet just so that they could watch Disney+. It worked, until my tablet ran out of power. Then, whoever had that tablet would start to come up to me and say I'm bored. They bring a backpack full of colors, coloring books, toys, etc., so I know that they aren't bored, they just want a tablet. I would then have to list off things for them to do, so that I could go back to work. After a while, I've learned how my coworker has been parenting them, and when the girls do something, then I just follow what my coworker tells them to do. For example, the girls have a towel and toothbrushes and toothpaste in the girls' bathroom. They are told that they have to wash their face, hands, and teeth after eating lunch. The girls would try to get away with this and go straight back to the tablets after eating, so I would have to remind them as to subtly tell them that they can't disobey their grandma. Now, I just have to raise an eyebrow and they listen. I really was fed up with all of this, especially when my coworker and I would usually be the only ones in the office, but I didn't really say anything because I know that my coworker can't really do anything to keep them home and they are kids who need to be loud and run around and all that. But, I finally realized how much my coworker was taking advantage of me when she said, "Wow. You're the cheapest babysitter. All I have to do is just pay for your lunch." She not only said this straight to my face, but also in front of the girls who now believe that I am their babysitter. Now if there are any problems, from an untied shoe to a fight over who can get what, the girls go to me first before their grandma. On the boat every ounce of sleep is precious and this guy thought it would be a good idea to play 2K on the PlayStation every night while everyone on the day shift was trying to sleep. I told him several times that I along with other people are having a hard time sleeping and he still continued to play all night. Instead of going to my chain of command I wanted to take matters into my own hands. When we pulled into a port for a visit I downloaded a universal remote controller app and synced it to the TV in the lounge. As soon as he would fire that bad boy up I would turn it right back off. He would check the cords and turn everything back on and then I would turn it right back off again all while pretending to be asleep in my rack. I had such a hard time holding my chuckles in. We repeated this process I shoot you not like 6 times in a row before he gave up. This went on several other nights during the deployment and it got to the point to where I looked forward to going to bed just so I could flip with him. He could never quite figure out why the TV never worked when he used it. He started to think maybe it had something to do with the timing, which in a sense that was true. The day before he was discharged from the Navy I told him the truth. I am 14. I am a certified referee in my state. I know the rules as I've played by them my whole life along with taking the officiating classes. At our park district, no headers for ages below 11. But in U12, it is up to the referee's discretion. So if it's a small tap it's okay. That is exactly what happens. So the coach behind me screams at the top of his lungs there are no headers in U12 5 to 16 times. I ignore him. Though I could eject him. It was last game of the season and I didn't care. After a bit of yelling, he says fine, go duck yourself then, which I turn and tell at him for saying in front of U11 kids. I wish I sent him away or ended the match. Sadly I didn't do much and my partner is a longtime referee, officiated my matches as I grew up, and he is deaf. So he has no idea what happened. The person who runs Park District in my area has been informed and is taking action. Without saying what I do, I work in a pretty hazardous job, essentially wearing a bastardized layered spacesuit for extended periods of time while operating around a variety of unpredictable known and unknown hazards. Edit please don't ask what I do. I work for the only company in the US that does this. The social media policies are very stringent, and I'd very easily be narrowed down. These suits are pretty protective. They resist the extreme environment we work in, cuts, stabs, heavy impacts, licks, and I honestly wouldn't be surprised if someone said they'd survive every apocalypse theoretically possible. Anyway, every company we contract to has their own specific set of protocols for exactly what they deem acceptable PPE. My personal suit usually covers it, but occasionally they have various bits they want you to add. In our suit-up room we saw these giant vests under a sign that said they were mandatory. My co-worker Nora had recognized the equipment, which is really bad considering we're both licensed as resourcers too and should know all of the equipment. Anyway, we're wearing these vests on the outside of the suit. They honestly are pretty uncomfortable even beyond what's expected. After about 3.5 hours of work my partner was getting obviously ill, so he was swapped out. Because of the staffing situation I got 2 people to replace him in the job with me. One of them was a woman. Women are a minority in this field. I was informed that I was wearing essentially a giant safety bra. It wasn't mandatory for men, it was for women for 1. For 2, I was wearing it outside my suit when it should have been inside. For 3, it was meant to provide additional protect the female breast against impact. TL doctor, accidentally wore a mandatory protective safety vest into work. Turns out it was mandatory for women, and was essentially a giant safety bra. Was embarrassed and had to rock it for another 6 hours after I learned. A while back I got into drinking Mio in an attempt to cut down on calorie intake as well as get in those tasty vitamins. Plus their stuff is just convenient and flavorful. I usually buy the Mio Sort Arctic Grape, with electrolytes and B vitamins, but I was feeling a little adventurous this week and got a nice black cherry flavor. Similar looking black label, and I saw that it said B vitamins. Good to go, right? I had some with dinner 2 nights ago night, and some more while I was playing video games. Bedtime comes around and clean up to go to bed. Then I lay there. And I lay there, And I lay there. And I lay there. 4 a.m. rolls around and I'm tired but cannot sleep. I get up to have some water, had a little more Mio with it too. So I went back to bed and laid there. And laid there. Until I finally went to sleep sometime near 6 a.m. I worked from home yesterday and could barely keep my eyes open as my bed stares at me rather attractively. My head was groggy, my attention was shot, and my work was beyond subpar. I spoke to my manager, stated that I'm exhausted and don't know why, and he gave me the afternoon off so I can rest up. And #X200B. I take a good 2-hour nap and woke up well rested and happy. A few hours later I get ready for dinner and a thought occurs to me. I grab my Mio and take a look at it and notice it says, Mio Energy, caffeine and B vitamins. I had been loading myself up on caffeine right before bed, and taking even more when I couldn't sleep. I've emptied that Mio into the sink. I'll be paying closer attention to what I buy from now on. I ended up working a little in the evening as well to make up for having missed the afternoon. DL, doctor. I bought Mio with caffeine instead of electrolytes and was drinking it right before bed, causing me to stay awake most of the night and be extremely exhausted the next day. I get a call from a dad who's very upset that his child got their fingers stuck in a car door handle. I work for a vehicle manufacturer. He claimed his child had been stuck for 30 minutes when he called. The child had shoved his fingers into a hole made by a previous accident and couldn't get them out. The dad claimed it was our fault because it's still under warranty. He didn't get the door fixed because he was waiting for the damage to be worth it. I assume he meant he planned to rough up the vehicle a bit more before bringing it in. I get that he's panicking because his kid is scared and possibly hurt, so I try to get him to the people who can help him because I'm not customer service. Me, I'm so sorry that this happened, let me put you through to our emergency helpline. Him, no. You're going to fix this now. If my boy has to run around with a stubby hand, I'll sue your asses off so hard. Me, sir, I'm sorry this happened, but this line is for contracted associates. Let me help you by getting you to the right people. Him, oh sure, the right people. You'll just send me to God knows where. My boy is suffering and you're just gonna hand me off like we don't matter. I transfer him anyway and give the emergency customer service agent a heads up. Me, hey, this guy's kid got stuck in the door by shoving his fingers in a hole. The door is broken because the vehicle was in a previous accident. He's already threatening to sue. Agent, okay, what does he want us to do about it? Why isn't he calling for an ambulance or something? Me, I think he's panicking, that or he's a scammer. The agent called me back in about 20 minutes to fill me in on what happened. They told the dad to put vegetable or olive oil on the kid's fingers to help get them out. The dad initially refused. He was convinced that the electrical components in the door would electrocute and kill his kid. Only after the agent repeatedly explained how electricity worked and instructed the dad on how to take the battery out of the car, did he comply. The kid's fingers popped right out after the oil was applied. No injury to the kid, but the dad said we'd be hearing from his lawyers for emotional trauma. This just occurred and honestly a personal shame and embarrassment will haunt me now forever. I am 17 by the way. I don't know whether or not this is a phenomenon, but as the title says, I use the bathroom in my dream. In my dream I was a businessman running around going places when I had the sudden urge to use the toilet. I recall being unable to actually find one in my dream, probably my subconscious warning me knowing what's about to happen, and I ended up finding a regular bathroom in who knows where. Whilst going about my business I begin to wake up, but the halfway point between awake and asleep, and as I feel the right side of my body getting damper and warmer I had realized what had just happened. It is now currently 4:10 a.m. I managed to remove the sheets but I had the courage to tell my mom what had happened. I walked into my parents' room and with the most disappointed voice told her I peed myself in bed. TL doctor, by being unable to differentiate a dream and reality and ended up peeing myself in bed. First time poster, and on mobile, so my apologies for any formatting concerns. My grandfather lived in rural southwestern Minnesota and was a very active and vocal Democrat. He regularly attended a coffee group with a friend who was an equally active and outspoken Republican. They would often debate politics in an outspoken but healthy way. My grandfather also had a mischievous stream which will come into play shortly. After one such debate my grandfather opted to play a trick on Grandpa's Republican friend. He did this by calling several local newspapers and requesting to place an item for sale ads in the personals section of the paper. What was the item for sale ad, you might ask? In this case it listed that a traveling circus had disbanded and had an elephant, the Republican mascot, for sale. All serious inquiries were directed to call Grandpa's Republican friend. Grandpa's Republican friend apparently became quite angry with callers inquiring about the elephant, leading to good teasing at the next coffee group. Started last night but bled into this morning. Emphasis on bled. My 38-week pregnant wife had her routine checkup yesterday where her doctor told her she was 4 centimeters dilated and to expect the baby within the next few days. Then last night she started experiencing contractions, but they were relatively mild, easy for me to say, and 15 to 20 minutes apart. We made the decision to sleep on it and track the contractions through the night, likely going to the hospital in the morning as everything we read was to not go to the hospital until contractions were closer. Fast forward to 2 a.m. and my wife frantically yelling at me that her water had just broken, the baby's head was coming out. Not believing her, I took a peek and sure enough the head was crowning. A quick call to 911 and within 10 minutes my daughter had emerged and was lying in a pool of blood on the bathroom floor. While comforting my wife and making sure the baby was breathing, I looked up to see that my 4-year-old son had woken up and was taking in the scene. Happy ending to the story that mom and baby doing well and my son seems to be okay and that he didn't really understand what was going on and was just happy to meet his baby sister. We'll never forget your quick entrance to the world, Madeline Rose. TLDR, my wife gave birth unplanned on our bathroom floor, largely with my son watching, possibly scarring him for life. To start with, I have a massive cherry tree in my backyard. It is right next to the fence between our and our neighbors' houses. My mother has recently told me to gather some for her to make some jam. Today she went to one of her acquaintances and I had decided to gather the cherries when she left. However, not all the cherries are ripe enough and only the ones on the top of the tree were good for making jam. So I took out an extensive ladder. I was really scared to climb it as it was constantly shaking, but somehow I managed to get to the top of the tree. I had no branches to put my foot on, so I had to put my foot on the ladder. Suddenly, I have lost my balance and I slipped off the ladder. I managed to jump on the tree and to hold it very tight so I wouldn't fall. However, the ladder has fallen right over the power cable leading to my neighbor's house. The TV that was playing in their house on a high volume turned off and I could hear them talking and wondering what had happened. Some seconds passed and Michael, my neighbor, went outside and saw the ripped cable. Only after staying astonished for a while did he notice me. I apologized and said that my father would repair everything. For some reason, he still couldn't say a word. Then his wife came and she was the one who called an electrician. She then came back and told her husband to come up and help me. He took another ladder of his own and helped me come down. He then told me I was lucky that I didn't fall down along with the ladder and, surprisingly, he didn't seem to be rude or furious at all. Then the electrician came and fixed everything. He asked who was responsible for the accident and, at that point, I wished I'd fallen at the start. My neighbors told him it was not his business. They even paid for the service and, without saying a single word, went back to their home. All that time I was sitting in the kitchen wishing this accident never happened. My mother came after a couple of hours and asked me why I haven't gathered any cherries. I still haven't told her because I'm still in shock. However, one thing I have learned today is that neighbors can become your saviors in need. Doctor, I have accidentally dropped a ladder on my neighbor's power cable and cut them off electricity. Camera. I tried fake nails about a year ago and immediately hated how they felt and ripped them off. I have only gotten the pre-glued ones because they are easier. I was wandering around the store and saw these really pretty purple nails and thought, heck, let's try this again. So I buy them and have a fun time giving myself a manicure, chillin', finding which ones fit best and just having fun. I realize I put half of them on backwards, so I peel them off, flip them around and stick them back on again, perhaps weakening the adhesive. I still hated the way they felt, but told myself to stick it out for the rest of the day. Now I'm a picker, I pick at my face, I scratch all my itches and I like to peel stickers and stuff off. Having fake nails makes this a much harder and weird feeling task. Taking off tight-fitting clothes is especially hard. I get to the end of my day, lay down to rest and absent-mindedly itch my inner ear. I think there is a pimple growing, so I pick a little harder than usual to see. I go back to playing games on my phone in the dark when I still feel something pimple-like in my ear, so I go to press it and put my finger in again and there is a large blockage that wasn't there before. I prove it to see what it is very flat and smooth, and that's when I realize it's my fake nail. Heck. I freak the flip out, go to the bathroom and try to fish it out, try using tweezers, and then push it maybe a little too much so I could get a grip on it and pull it out, which to great relief I did. I do not and will not ever have fake nails in my house again. Doctor tried fake nails for the second time ever, itch my ear in the dark and the nail gets stuck in it, freaked the F out trying to get it out. Maybe should have just asked husband to help instead of risking further damage. As a reminder, we all, or most of us at least, work in financial institutions, and whether they are big or small, bank or credit union, are just trying to get through our awful customer service jobs with the added stress of dealing with people's money with every interaction. Banker, teller, or call center, we are all in this together against the hordes of crazy people, and tides of dementia that come to our doors. Treat each other like family, even if it is more like we are all victims of the same hostage situation.